Hey everyone. Today we're going to get into something that is deeply personal for so many people. We're talking about that frustrating, confusing feeling of being physically sick, but being told that, medically, everything's fine. We're going to explore some groundbreaking new science that is finally connecting the dots between our minds and our bodies.
So, to really get this, let's just dive right in with a scenario that I'm willing to bet sounds, well, frustratingly familiar to a lot of you.
You know the feeling, right? You've got these very real physical symptoms. Maybe it's chronic pain, or it's digestive issues, or just this bone-deep exhaustion. You go to the doctor, you run all the tests, you wait for that big answer, and then nothing. You're told that on paper, you're perfectly healthy. It's such a confusing and honestly an invalidating place to be.
And look, if this is you, I really want you to hear this. You are absolutely not alone. Not even close. Get this. Some research shows that up to 30%, of all visits to a general practitioner are for what they call medically unexplained symptoms. That's nearly 1 out of every 3 people walking into a doctor's office.
In this whole situation, it just creates so much friction. As a patient, you can feel completely dismissed. You get that nagging feeling that you're basically being told it's all in your head. But on the flip side, doctors get frustrated too. I mean, they can feel powerless when all their training and all their tools can't pinpoint a cause. It's a dead end for everybody.
So how did we even get here? To figure that out, we need to rewind a bit and look at the old way of thinking, because the medical framework itself was actually part of the problem.
For a long time, these kinds of cases were often slapped with the label somatoform disorder. And the whole diagnosis hinged on one key thing. The physical symptoms could not be explained by any known medical illness. It was what's called a diagnosis of exclusion. Basically, a diagnosis of, we don't know.
And this is so important. The diagnosis wasn't based on something the patient had, but on what they didn't have. The absence of a clear cause. What this did, without anyone meaning to, was create this huge, unhelpful divide between a real illness and an in-your-head illness.
But, and this is the really good news, medical science has taken this incredible leap forward. It's given us a completely new and, frankly, much more compassionate way of understanding what's going on here.
Okay, so this slide just lays it all out, and it's a total game changer. The old view, somatoform disorder, was a diagnosis of absence. It only worked if doctors found, well, nothing. But the new view, somatic symptom disorder, is a diagnosis of presence. It focuses on the very real, excessive distress, the anxious thoughts, the life-disrupting behaviors that are related to the physical symptoms. And here's the key part. It doesn't matter if there's a medical cause or not. This is huge. It means you can have a totally real, confirmed condition like, say, migraines or ABPS, and also have somatic symptom disorder if your emotional and behavioral response to it is causing significant suffering.
This is such a massive shift in thinking. But okay, how does this actually work? How can our thoughts and feelings have such a powerful physical effect on our bodies? Well, the science here is just, wow.
So today, modern medicine is really embracing something called the biopsychosocial model. It sounds a little academic, I know, but the idea is actually super simple. It just says that these 3 things, our biology, our psychology, and our social world, they aren't in separate boxes. They are constantly talking to each other, influencing each other all the time. It's not body or mind, it's body and mind. And we have some seriously cool science to back this up. For instance, there's a field called psychoneuroimmunology. Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know. PNI for short. And what PNI shows is that emotional stress isn't just a feeling. No way. It actually triggers a real physical cascade of stress hormones like cortisol, which in turn can fire up your immune system and create this low-grade chronic inflammation all over your body.
And then there's this field that just blows my mind, epigenetics. Okay, so think of your DNA as this giant instruction manual for your body. Well, epigenetics is like all the little sticky notes and highlighter marks that your life experiences, stress, trauma, but also good things like diet and social connection, put on those instructions. They can literally turn genes on or off without ever changing the blueprint itself.
And here's where things get really hopeful. We're now seeing these incredible studies that show things like psychotherapy, talk therapy, aren't just talk. They can create real, measurable, biological changes in your body, helping to calm that overactive immune system, and even smoothing out some of those negative epigenetic marks left by stress.
All right, let's get even more microscopic, like right down to our actual DNA. At the very tips of our chromosomes, we have these little protective caps called telomeres. The best way to think about them? They're like those little plastic tips on the end of your shoelaces. And they are, quite literally, the biological clocks of our cells. So, what does this have to do with our daily lives? Well, here's the kicker. Chronic psychological stress, the kind that just goes on, it physically wears down these protective caps. It makes them shorter, faster. In effect, chronic stress can literally speed up aging at the cellular level. But, and this is the amazing part, the science shows we can actually fight back. Practices like meditation and stress reduction can boost an enzyme called telomerase, which acts like a maintenance crew, protecting and even helping to rebuild our telomeres. We can actually influence our own biological clocks.
So with all this incredible new science, what do we do? How do we actually treat people? Well, the future is all about a much more holistic approach, and it's changing the game for everyone.
This brings us to a more integrated way of doing things. In some places, they call it simultanotherapy, which just means simultaneous therapy. And the idea is as simple as it is powerful. Instead of that old linear path where you see a doctor, hit a dead end, and then maybe get sent to a therapist months later, this model treats the whole person, all at once. As you can see, the biological, the psychological, and the social are all looked at together by a team, because an intervention in one area is going to have ripple effects in all the others.
You know, for decades, patients and doctors have all been trapped by this one really unhelpful question. Is it in my body or is it in my head? We've been stuck with this false choice.
And if there's one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. The new science is screaming at us that this is absolutely the wrong question. The body and mind aren't two separate things. They're one deeply, beautifully interconnected system.
And that just leaves us with a final and I think pretty empowering thought. For so long, we saw the mind as a potential problem. But what if it's actually our most powerful source of healing? What if the best way to heal the body is to start by taking care of our minds? It's something to think about. Thanks for digging into this with me today.